Welcome back to Inside City Hall. With less than a month left until primary day, dozens of candidates are campaigning in neighborhoods across the city. Before voters head to the polls on September 14th, we're going to be hosting a series of debates in some races that we think deserve a little more attention. Tonight, we welcome two Democratic candidates vying for a Queens Assembly seat that includes parts of Elmhurst, East Elmhurst, and Corona, and a little bit of Rego Park. We welcome the incumbent, Assemblyman Jeffrion Aubry, and the challenger, Anthony Miranda, the president of the National Latino Police Officers Association. And gentlemen, we welcome you both to Inside City Hall. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
I think what we'll do is start by letting you make a little introduction to our viewers and tell us why you both think you're qualified to be in the Assembly. And Anthony, since you are the newcomer, why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I'm a retired sergeant with the New York City Police Department for over 23 years of service. I've been a community advocate for many years. Organizing in our community and defending people's rights has been my background and what we do. And another reason for running for office is the fact that the Assemblyman that I'm running against has currently voted and continued to vote against educational cuts and health care cuts. And these are major issues, $1 billion of cuts, not just this year, but it's every preceding year before that, where these cuts have had a tremendous impact on our community. And that's the reason for running for office.
All right, and what qualifies you to be an assemblyman?
An assemblyman is a person who advocates for his community. Unfortunately, advocacy has not been the forte of the assemblyman in terms of being locked into certain areas. Advocating means that we have to defend our community, be willing to take on the struggles, and be at the forefront of the fights. And I think that's what people are looking for. They're looking for honesty, openness, and then looking for new leadership as opposed to the old backroom traditional politics that have gone on in Albany that have misled us for many years.
All right. Mr. Aubry.
Well, I'm happy that my opponent indicated that I voted against cuts. He said I oppose cuts, and I have opposed cuts, and I have voted for cuts in my 18 years, as it has been appropriate based on the revenues that we had in this state. I have lived and worked in this community for almost all of my life. I know the neighborhood. The neighborhood has changed even from the time that I was brought there as a small child. I've worked in a not-for-profit there, helped start one, a not-for-profit that's still alive. I've worked for the Borough President's Office in Queens, and I've represented this district for 18 years. I have passed significant legislation on many areas. I believe that we are not, in the State Assembly, we're not city council people. That isn't who we are. We are lawmakers. We go to Albany to make the laws that govern this state and to pass budgets, whether those budgets are late or early. Oftentimes my constituents would tell me they would rather a late budget than a bad budget. And so in good times, we've provided dollars in areas, particularly in education, which has been a real primary battle that we fought in Albany as Democrats, as well as passed the changes to the Rockefeller drug laws. I'm chair of corrections. I've established a leadership role in the Assembly. I voted against things in the Assembly that I believe were wrong. I voted against the cuts to the city when the commuter tax was proposed to be repealed. I voted against that. I voted against mayoral control, which was something that people wanted, because I didn't believe that the current administration was doing what was necessary in order to really educate the children of this city. So I have been both a player, a conciliator, an opposer. I've done my job in Albany as I feel it has been required, and have also for 18 years been reelected, and not for nothing, I believe.
And if there was one thing you stand for, what would you say to the viewers and to the voters? I stand for.
Well, I believe that I stand for taking care of the individuals who can't take care of themselves. And I think my legislative record shows that. In Rockefeller, in reforming those laws, in the special housing unit bill that we passed that took care and changed the way that people who are incarcerated are treated in mental institutions inside the prison. Interestingly enough, I also stand for the development. One of my first bills 18 years ago or thereabouts was to pass the legislation that allowed the construction of the United States Tennis Association, which is in Flushing Meadow Park, which is joins our community and has been one of the biggest revenue generators for the city as a special event, and certainly helped all the hotels that are bordering the airport and in and around our community, which employs a lot of people. And so therefore, I think I've done a lot of different things over those 18 years that have enhanced both the neighborhood that I represent, the state as a total, and the city as a total.
All right. Well, Mr. Miranda, Mr. Aubry has outlined some of the things he's done in his 18 years. What is wrong with the job he's been doing for 18 years?
It's good when we say he's done so much, but the fact of the matter is that he passed a budget that cut $1.4 million to education this year. The year before that, he cut billions of dollars again to education. He voted for the bill with all the cuts to free bus passes for the children. He accepted that. Now, he wants to claim that they did something different, but the fact of the matter is he was one of the people highlighted in the New York Times that cut the funding for children's bus passes to go to school. We have some of the worst overcrowding in our district currently, and he's one of the people, again, that has not prevented the proposed closing of schools. As a result, under his watch, we had 3 hospitals closed in our district, hundreds of workers losing their job. The only hospital left, one of the only hospitals left, Elmer's Hospital, is currently going to lay off another 60 employees. They're going to go privatize some of their services and do away with some of the unions. So while he claims to take credit for what the Senate ultimately forced to happen, the Senate was the one that brought the bill back and had things put back in the budget. But what he signed on to was the cutting to education. What he signed on to was the cutting of the bus passes. It's shameful that he should sit here and say that he put these things back and then try to sell people that he's given more to education. When, again, this year, the actual cut to the education and continuing education is $1.4 billion. And, again, it's every year. So people aren't just complaining about this year's budget. What people are facing is a series of years where they've had budget cuts and budget cuts and budget cuts, and then now they have increases in taxes. He's one of the people that voted to increase the taxes on people spending less than $100. They might have waited till after the school year to put the law into effect so it wouldn't impact on people's campaigns. But the fact of the matter is it's have a devastating impact. The laws that they have passed, the legislation they have passed, the things that he's espousing to have had a devastating impact on the residents of Queens and poor working families.
All right, well, let's let Mr. Aubry respond to that.
In fact, I also passed the bill that rescinded the taxes on clothes. In times of profit, when we have excess money, we do the things necessary to drive down the cost of the state. Mr. Miranda forgets that we faced a $9.2 billion deficit this year. And there were a lot of things that were going to be done, and I've talked to my constituents about that nobody was going to like. This budget was not a budget that anybody was going to be happy with. But we have a requirement as a government to provide a reasonable financial package that allows us to proceed. You know, this country that we live in this state, doesn't operate always on surplus. It is a part of the United States of America, and we go through recession and profit times and good times and bad times. And so we have to, as lawmakers and legislators, adjust ourselves to that. I was also a part of passing one of the most historic increases in funding to education, which we fought for many years. And we have fought many administrations while I've been there. We fought the Pataki years, we fought the Spitzer years, and now we're in the Patterson years, and we will move on to face maybe the Cuomo years. And each governor comes in with a new direction and a place that they want to go, and we in the Assembly have maintained those same commitments that we have. I think any serious observer of Albany understands that this year the Assembly was the adults in the room, holding down the line while the Senate tried to get their act together. So to credit the Senate with some remarkable ability to govern in this particular year means that Mr. Miranda wasn't paying attention at all.
The bus passes, the MTA bus passes, for the students, did you in fact vote to cut those? And did you take a lot of heat for that?
The first cut that was done was the budget that was given to us by the governor, and then it was restored in the final. We go through, a budget is made by negotiation. It's not made by noise. It's made by negotiation, by sitting down and talking, by creating what is possible. And those are the skills that you have to have. Getting pressed because you're upset or because you don't like things. There were so many things in this budget that was proposed by the governor that nobody liked.
Right.
But what we did, we looked at it, we talked to the governor, we understood his position that there had to be cuts, and then we went into the negotiation process between ourselves and then moved to a negotiation trying to meet with the Senate to cause that to happen, and then 3 negotiations. It was a very difficult year.
So tough choices.
It was tough choices.
How about that, though, Mr. Miranda? There was a $9.2 billion deficit. The governor had been saying for months that there had to be cuts. Everything was on the table. You know, the traditional sacred cows of health care and education, and even the beloved student bus passes were all costing the state money it didn't have. How would you balance a budget given those realities?
Let's go back to one thing that he said. We did have a deficit, something that we had to make up. But he agreed that he approved and signed on to the governor's bill the way it came down the first time, which were devastating cuts and services to our basic community, to our elderly, to our children, to the basic things that we need. You cannot improve the gap on the backs of working families. You can't just say we're just going to continue to take from the people who are already suffering enough. And that's why it says we're not just looking at a one-year deficit, and we're not just looking at the passing of laws and budgets that have had a devastating impact. We're looking on a series of years where they continue to put it on the backs of working families and poor families. Now, you can't sit here and say that he's proud of that kind of record. Yeah, they're tough decisions. But they shouldn't be in the backs of the elderly. They should not be in the backs of our kids. They should not be cutting back the education, the grants that were there for kids' education as well. All these things are what people are concerned about right now, and they want to have a response. They want to have a voice. Now, while he may say it's good to negotiate, everything needs its point of negotiation. But they also need a person in the front that's going to be fighting the issues and raising the voice of the community. That voice wasn't heard from him. He didn't step up in the assembly and say, hey, I disagree with this. Hey, I want to fight against this. I want to organize other assemblymen and say, we don't want this to happen. That's not what he did.
Right.
He agreed to those budget cuts.
We do have to take
Miranda,
a break, but Mr. Aubry wants to correct,
Mr.
I think,
Miranda
some
is
information.
not in Albany, and so he does not know what positions I've taken in Albany, nor does he go into the Democratic Conference where we do our discussions and our fights.
And
if he was there, and he would know that that's not true. If he were, other than being just arriving in the community about a year ago, he's not in the meetings that I meet with constituents and talk about the things that we want to do and have done over the years. So this is a fabrication of a guy who wants to be.
Okay, we're going to take a break there, and we're going to have more, though, of this debate between Assemblyman Aubry and Anthony Miranda. And later on, you can find out how you can comment on anything you saw on tonight's show, so stay with us for that.